I was studying abroad. I studied abroad in the Penn in London English program, so for English majors, we were at King's College, an amazing experience. And one of our trips, we had a couple day trips, and it was to Winchester. And we got to see the cathedral, which was beautiful. And then we went on a walk out into the outskirts of the town. And there was this hill, it was St. Catharine's Hill. And when you went up there, first of all, Keats wrote about walking around that area. So John Keats, the famous poet. So obviously it was very inspiring already. But then when you walked onto the top of the hill, they're basically this circle of very large trees. It feels quite ancient. So immediately when I walked in there, I was awestruck by this place. And just the whole environment of being surrounded by English countryside was just beautiful. So then I just snapped a couple pictures, and one of the pictures I snapped was the one that is included in the exhibition, which just includes these beautiful trees and the sunlight coming through, and it felt very ethereal. So when I got back to my dorm, I was thinking about my experience there, and I looked at the picture and I said, well, this needs music. Well, what I really wanted was it to feel simple, because when you look at musically the piece, it's quite simple in its construct, just basically 3 lines moving in unison with one another. And that's what the experience of being on top of the hill was like. It was a simple experience that was very affecting. And I thought that the strings convey that. First of all, I love writing for strings. And I just love that sound of the low strings too, because I recorded the piece a couple of days ago, and I don't usually work with just violas and cellos, and usually there are a violin or a bass involved for a quartet, but instead I just picked those 2 middle strings, and it created this quite interesting sound that was low, and it felt ethereal, and that's what I really wanted from the piece. And also I didn't want it to feel entirely happy. I thought that being on the hill, it was a moment where you really thought about just everything. It just kind of flowed over you. And it wasn't necessarily a happy thing, it was sentimental and bittersweet. So that's why the piece isn't entirely happy, it's somewhat emotional. As a part of my English major studies there, I was in a fin de siècle class, which is basically the late 1890s, or the 1890s in general, and the idea of the turn of the century. And one of the books that we read was Tom Hardy's Jude the Obscure. I'd never read it before, but I'd heard things that it was a very sad book, and believe me, it's very sad, but also brilliantly written. And when I was reading it, because I had already written this piece by the point that we were reading this book, and towards the end, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's very sad, suddenly the piece started playing in my head when I was reading it, just completely subconsciously. I wasn't thinking about how it really related. And it struck me because I felt like that the tone of those low strings really captured the moments at the end of that book. So then I thought, well, why not write this for Thomas Hardy's book as well? And so I didn't rewrite it, I changed some small things. And that's actually when I came up with the final version of it that you hear today. Yeah, so I've always been surrounded by music, I would say. But I first started studying music when I was 8. I studied piano. And I remember my first piano teacher, she was so nice. And it was just like the basic stuff. I mean, we were going through like the children's piano books and playing scales, and then obviously I became more advanced with piano. And then in 5th grade, when I was 11, I picked up flute for my elementary school band. I was told by my elementary school music teacher that I should try out an instrument, and I chose flute because my mom played it when she was in high school, and also it sounded like a bird. That's why I remember saying that. I told my mom, well, I want to play the flute because it sounds like a bird. So that's how I picked up flute. I still play it to this day. And then freshman year of high school, I started picking up composition. I studied with someone at the Curtis Institute of Music here in Philly, so I would take the train down on Saturdays and study with him. So that's when I really started picking up momentum composition-wise. Because in 6th grade, I actually wrote a piece of music, my first one, for my for my elementary school graduation. So that was the first piece I wrote. I performed in front of the entire audience of parents. I played the piano, it was just for piano. It was a simple piece, but it definitely, come to think of it when I look back at how I wrote that, a lot of the techniques that I used when I was like in 6th grade, I still use to this day, because I'm very much interested in repetition, and I employed that when I was in 6th grade. That's basically what the piece was. And one of the great things was that when I graduated from high school, I wrote a second movement to that piece. And then I'm hoping when I graduate from college, I'll write a third one. So it'll be like a trifecta, like 3 pieces that will follow me through my education. It's interesting because I took a class with Eugene Liu, spring semester of my sophomore year, the electronic music class. So I got to know him quite well. And then just a very random event in that I came back to Penn before I went to London to do some reading before my classes, I was taking a colonial novel and British India class. I'd never studied colonial novel or British India before. So I was doing some reading for that, so I ended up coming to this library in August, I think, late August, and just randomly, there was Eugene Liu with Heather, and he basically introduced us and said that we would love for you to submit something for this. So then later that year, obviously like in November, I decided that this is what I would want to submit. But it was like a random encounter, but it was great. One of them I would say would be Thomas Newman. He scored movies like Shawshank Redemption, Finding Nemo. He has a great sound that's so unique to him, and I look to try to create a sound that's unique to me, that people will say, oh, that's like Nicholas Escobar, that's that sound. For Thomas Newman, it's this great blend of exotic percussion instruments, great uses of the piano, and if you listen to his scores, you can see this theme running through on the way that he orchestrates, and it's entirely his own. So he inspires me in that way, but also John Williams in terms of a melodic inspiration, because it's hard to find another composer these days that is such a master of writing leitmotifs and themes for characters and places, and that's what really brings to life. And another person would be Howard Shore. I mean, if you look at the score for Lord of the Rings, I don't know how many themes he wrote for that, but it's remarkable. I just had a movie marathon with my family for Lord of the Rings, and it was just great to hear Howard Shore's score again. But my plan is to become a film composer in Hollywood, so I'm very much in the realm of looking at film, looking at photographs, looking at nature, and writing music based off of them. Last year I composed music for the Morris Arboretum for their Creative Expressions tour. So I was looking at live nature and writing music based off of that, and then here I did a photograph and writing music based off of that. So I'm very much inspired by other forms of art to inspire my music. But the plan right now, I'm working on 2 film projects at the moment, a student film and a commercial. I hope to have more projects in the future here at Penn. I've been fortunate to meet a lot of people who are interested in going into the film industry. But I'm also interested in doing more things like this, looking at art, looking at paintings and writing music based off of them, because I do that naturally. I think it's a great way to be inspired, because as a composer, it's kind of hard when you sit down and say, I'm going to write a piece. You can't really do it like that, because you need that spark of invention and that spark of inspiration. And for me, that comes from either watching a film that I'm given to score, or looking at a painting in an art gallery, or a photograph in a gallery like this. That's where my inspiration mostly comes from. So I look to keep doing that in the future.